So my name is Kendall Lampke, and it's my pleasure this evening to introduce this evening's speaker. I'm the chair of the Agronomy Department. And so I've known David for a long time, Dr. David Bergvinson, this evening's speaker. David's actually a native of Canada, and he got all three of his degrees up there. David's actually from Vancouver, British Columbia, where there's a small event going on there right now, I think, that some of us have been watching. But I want to read a little bit of a bio about David to give you a little bit of idea what he's doing now at the Gates Foundation. So David joined the Gates Foundation in March of 2007 as a senior program officer for science and technology within the agricultural development team. Before that, he worked 12 years in Mexico at the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center and led their host plant improvement program for maize, which developed insect-resistant maize varieties for Africa and Asia using conventional and transgenic approaches. He also managed Simmet's, while at Simmet, their drought breeding network in Southeast Asia that resulted in the development of several stress-tolerant lines that have since been released throughout Asia and national programs. David has always emphasized the importance of involving farmers in the early stages of selection of experimental varieties to ensure high adoption rates, a philosophy he continues to follow at the Gates Foundation to ensure our crop improvement grants remain focused on improving the lives of smallholder farmers in Africa and Asia. He manages about 10 projects now, he tells me, up from the 7 on my list, which I won't read them all to you. The total project amounts on my list is around 127 million, so he has a lot of responsibility for seeing that a lot of projects in Africa have impact. And tonight he's going to share some of the role of the Gates Foundation in improving the lives of small stakeholder farmers in Africa and Asia. So David, it's a pleasure to have you here this evening. Please join me in welcoming David.
Thank you, Kendall, and good evening, everyone. A Monday night, and you're here. That's very impressive. So I'll try to make sure that this is worth not watching the Olympics and spending time learning about the Gates Foundation. So with that, I like to keep this fairly informal, so if there's some questions that you have as we roll along, please feel free to interrupt me. Basically what I want to do this evening is just give you a quick overview of the Gates Foundation, especially our involvement in agricultural development, and then to focus in on a few examples of the crop improvement grants that we support in order to improve the productivity as well as the quality of staple crops in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. And then to leave you with some parting thoughts about the need for integration of not only crop improvement but marrying that to good agronomic practices in order to improve the profitability and sustainability of agricultural production in Africa and South Asia. So with that, I'd like to start off by giving you an overview. So what do we focus on in the Gates Foundation? Well, we look for issues that impact on the most people, especially in our target geographies, issues that in the past have been neglected, especially in the recent years. The last 15 years, we've seen a dramatic decline in investing in agricultural development, and we see signs now of that trend reversing gladly, so that's wonderful news. And where we feel we can make the greatest impact, so looking at the landscape to see where there is a neglected need that we can address as a foundation. So when we look at the role of agriculture in improving the livelihoods of smallholder farmers, when we look at those living below $1 a day, we see that the greatest concentration of poverty is found in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. And for that reason, we focus on these geographies. When we look at those living in poverty, the concentration of poverty is mostly felt or found in rural areas. And when we look at the role of agriculture in these developing countries, agriculture accounts for roughly a third or more of the GDP of these countries. So it plays a central role not only in the lives of those who are the poorest, but also accounts for a large portion of the economy of these countries where we want to work. When we look at the ability to agriculture to lift countries out of poverty, we see that really agriculture is the only engine that has repeatedly been the engine for broad-based economic development. And it contributes 2 to 4 times more towards development than non-agrarian investments. And basically, when we're looking at reducing hunger and malnutrition, that agriculture is really the best vehicle to achieve these goals. So when we look back at the first green revolution that took place under the leadership of Norman Borlaug, we see that there were some real key lessons to be learned out of that. And basically what Dr. Borlaug and his colleagues managed to do was to bring together policymakers, good science, and the right types of inputs, namely fertilizer and improved varieties that respond well to fertilizers, to basically double food production in South Asia. There was a prediction that there would be starvation of hundreds of millions of people living in India and Pakistan at that time. And basically in the course of a decade they managed to reverse that trend dramatically, and resulting in those countries actually being net exporters of wheat and rice. But we see that this is true not only in the first green revolution, but investments in agricultural development have been probably some of the best returns on investment internationally, whether it's Latin America, Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, that we're seeing returns of between 20 and 40%, which is very good. And basically what we see is that agricultural development really needs to tackle three major issues that we feel are critical. One is production. That during the Green Revolution, the annual rate of increase in cereals was around 2.8%. Today it's less than 1%. Productivity. We need to make the most out of the inputs that we apply to these crops, and so especially around water, which is becoming extremely in short supply in South Asia. And when we look at prices, that really hunger is the breeding grounds for revolutions, and what we saw in the last 3 years with severe price fluctuations, that actually translated into rioting. So we need to focus on these three aspects. And if we look at historically what has been the running average of annual gains in yield of the three basic cereals, maize, wheat, and rice, we can see that on the extreme left there, that's 1969. And the annual rate of increase for all three cereals was between 2.5% and 3.5%. Today, though, we see on the far right that wheat is below 0.5% annual increase, rice is about 0.8%, and maize is about 1.7%, and that is largely due to large investment the private sector has made in increasing the productivity of maize. So we can see a dramatic decline due to lack of investment in crop improvement, as well as improving agronomic practices for these three cereals. So our vision for agricultural development is that we see agriculture as really, as I said, the base, the foundation for broad-based economic development. And our goal is to lift literally, our goal for Africa is about 150 million smallholder farmers out of poverty, most of whom are women, by providing them with the tools and opportunities to boost their yields as well as to increase their incomes. So our approach is to focus on results, that we're very much impact-oriented as an organization. You can imagine with Bill Gates as our commander-in-chief, if you will, that he's very much focused on making sure that our investments are successful. Building strong partnerships we see is really key, especially as we look at scaling up these investments and reaching this goal of over 150 million smallholder farmers. We really rely on effective partnerships. And we work across the full value chain, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So when we talk about the full value chain, we're looking in really two different dimensions here. One is across the continuum from basic research through to delivery of that technology to smallholder farmers, which we see being only driven by effective markets.
Thank you for watching the Agronomist Podcast. YouTube limits video lengths to 10 minutes. You can watch this seminar in its entirety at the Department of Agronomy website, www.agron.iastate.edu.